When I asked Erich Spangenberg to be our commencement speaker today, he said to me, if you would poll the class of 1985 and ask who someday was going to be commencement speaker, I'd come in dead last. Well, Erich, everybody makes mistakes. Erich Spangenberg is an extraordinary human being. The privilege that I have of being your dean is not only knowing you in law school, but getting to meet so many of you who graduated so many years ago. And to meet someone like Erich Spangenberg is really to put your whole life in perspective. Erich is a visionary, and I use that word not lightly. When J.P. Morgan was asked why he did what he did, he said, I wanted to rationalize American industry. When I asked Erich Spangenberg why he does what he does, he told me, I want to rationalize the chaotic market for intellectual property. Some entrepreneurs invent products, some entrepreneurs create institutions. Erich Spangenberg is creating an institution that will change the way our business is done. Not too many people can say that. Erich is also extraordinary in another way. And in this I include his wonderful wife Audrey and his son Christian. Within 5 minutes of meeting Erich, I asked him for $2 million. Within 6 minutes, he said yes. What I saw and have seen since is what is extraordinary about the Spangenbergs is they work to give. 10 generations of Spangenbergs can retire from hence on based on Erich and Audrey's success. What an incredible insult that would be to them. And I'm fairly sure they'll set things up so that can't happen. The Spangenbergs believe in giving, not just through the work they do professionally, but through the charities and foundations that they fund and create. They work so that our lives can be better. They work for the sheer joy of being able to fund neonatal units, to finance primary and secondary education, to give to universities, to make things happen. This is extraordinary. And so I introduce Erich Spangenberg not only as your alumni brother, but as my friend, Erich Spangenberg.
Do you mind if I take this off? Yep. Thank you, Dean. And thank you all of you for inviting me and my family here today. It's a good afternoon for you all. You should all be very proud and very excited. The short version of my speech is that stuff happens and embrace it. I'll give you the longer version now. I did not attend my law school graduation, so it's nice to be able to come back and see this one. It's actually pretty cool from this perspective. So, y'all are graduating into a relatively uncertain times in the legal market, and I hope that you'll embrace it and make the most of it. It's to those of you who've worked hard and gotten great jobs with, law firms, industry, public defender offices, whatever, what a great accomplishment in this environment. You should be very, very proud of yourselves. To those of you who are doing something else or not even sure what you're doing, I hope to share a bit of insight with you. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and did not meet my first attorney until I was in my teens, and even then I didn't really know what he did. And in my world, growing up, the well-to-do were teachers and people that owned restaurants and gas stations. What we call rich today didn't exist near me. I'm certain the top-paid families where I grew up made less than half of what a first-year associate makes at a big firm today. I didn't even hear the word entrepreneur until I was well into my 20s. My parents and family were unbelievably supportive of me, but it's impossible to guide somebody who doesn't know where they're going, and that was me. I had a barely passing average in high school and was very fortunate to get into the University of Delaware without my high school degree. I nearly failed out my first year at the University of Delaware because I had no study skills, and I foolishly took courses like biology and chemistry because I didn't know what logic, economics, and statistics were. Fortunately, after my first year, there was a school in upstate New York, Skidmore College, that desperately needed male students in order to build a sports program, and so they recruited me, and I went there. Once I got there, I started to get it. The lights started to go off that you actually had to work and study and what all that stuff meant. And plus, there were a couple of professors that took an interest in me and taught me that my aptitude really wasn't in chemistry or biology, but it was in economics and math. After that, I caught another break, and I was accepted to study for my master's at the London School of Economics in London, and it was just an unbelievable experience for me. After studying economics and socialism, sitting at a desk that Karl Marx used, and studying early versions of gaming theory, I was convinced that I got over my fascination with socialism and was convinced I wanted to become a rare metal earth trader. It was landed a position with a trading company, and a few months before graduation, that company filed for bankruptcy. In an absolutely full-scale panic, I applied to 2 law schools, Case and one other, and I barely got into Case. I applied late, it was just awful. But in any event, I was happy and bitter that I got in all at the same time. By the time I got in, there were no scholarships left. I already had a ton of student debt, and I was about to incur a ton more. I liked the idea of attending law school, but actually attending it wasn't all that much fun for me. I did well, but I never really understood why I had to take courses, and not to pick at anyone in particular, like common law, civil procedure, and I just had no interest in any of them. It just made absolutely no sense to me. Turns out, now that I'm a little older and I look back, I was wrong. What it was a method of learning, and that's what those classes were about. Chances are you'll never use them from this day forward. Maybe for the months. And I know y'all probably had your favorite professor. My favorite was one that really intimidated me, and it was tough to intimidate me. I didn't come to law school just fresh out of school. Had actually done a couple other things, and Professor Katz, the first few classes, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to last here. I just don't like this. And the criminal law, another subject I had absolutely no interest in. So he sat me down in his office about 2 weeks into the semester and said, hey, I get it, you're a smart guy. He goes, but you are not focused. And he goes, you're accustomed to doing mathematical calculations where you quickly get to an answer and move on. He goes, that's not what you're doing here. Incredibly helpful, and got me through my 3 years here. Whenever I'd see Professor Katz, I only took criminal law for the one, he would just look at me and smile and say, hey, did you learn anything new today? And it was just sort of those types of nudges that kept me going through school. So for that, I thank you. So after 3 years at Case, I could not wait to get started, and I accepted a position with Jones Day in Dallas. I was absolutely fascinated and completely baffled by the fact that anyone hired me because I really didn't know anything. I remember the first day on the job, I got hooked up with this one corporate partner, and he handed me a merger agreement, told me to mark it up, wasn't really even sure what he meant, but grabbed it, locked myself in my office, stayed up all night trying to figure it out. It didn't help staying up all night, and he just brutalized it the next day. Next day I come into work, and he says, hey, and he was actually very cold and famous for being very abrupt. He said, I'd like you to bring in your law school diploma. I foolishly asked why. He goes, because I want to confirm you attended law school. And I was like, so he was, his name was Bob Profusik, actually, he's a good guy, and he just pushed my buttons and drove me crazy, and so I made the horrible mistake of vowing to make partner at Jones Day. So put my head down, built thousands of hours, worked on some pretty cool projects, but it was not sure it was the right step. In any event, on my class of 55 original, I think 3 of us made partner at the end of the day, and when I finally made partner, I was moved to this huge office, and I was convinced that I'd arrived. I mean, it could not get any better for some kid from Buffalo to be a partner at Jones Day. Couldn't get any better. I called my mom up the day I made partner, and I said, hey mom, I made partner. And she's like, wow, I'm surprised. And I said, well, why mom? And she said, well, your father and I just assumed you were not very good at your job because you never go to court. I gave up explaining what a corporate lawyer was that day. So it's, you keep zipping through life. And about 3 months after I made partner, my wife was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Good partner. She's with me here today. But it's stuff like that, and that's what I meant earlier, stuff happens. It's stuff like that that made me rethink my life, that I really want to be a partner in a major law firm and work, 2,500 hours, 3,000 hours a year. And so I started to doubt it, and with my wife's support and my 2-year-old son's support, they said, fine, if you want to be an investment banker, knock yourself out. So I go from a $350,000 a year job to a $60,000 a year job, with no guarantee of bonus. And it was a time I had $100,000+ of student debt, just jumped in. The decision made was that what I wanted so desperately to make partner really held no future allure for me after I'd made it. It just completely said that all these circumstances are lining up such that I've got to get out. If I don't get out now, I will never get out, and I'm so happy I did. Not that there's anything wrong with legal law firm partner, it's awesome, but it wasn't for me. So off to Wall Street I go, learn a lot about finance, and the first year works out really well. And as luck would have it, a telecom company came to me, this is mid-1990s now, and asked me to run mergers and acquisitions for them. There was no hotter area. This was sort of going to be the peak of my career, and I just jumped on it. My stock options became worth a fortune. Life could not get any better. As a matter of fact, it got so good that they named me CEO. And on that day, the market cap went up over $1 billion, which was not a lot today, but in the 1990s, that was a big deal. So about this time, we get sued in a couple of patent cases. I am the only lawyer there, so the GC was focused on telecom and didn't know anything about patents, and so I got stuck handling that. I was fascinated by the process and just sort of filed it in the data bank and moved forward. We're about 2 months into my CEO-ship, and the company's forced to announce a huge earnings miss, just staggering, like 50% off. The stock tumbled, and I thought the world couldn't get worse, and it got worse. A month after this, the company was sued by every class action lawyer in the country, including me. A month after that, the auditors resign. A month after that, the SEC comes in to investigate. And a few months after that, the company declares bankruptcy. So, not surprisingly, I get fired as CEO. And I was fortunate enough to go to work for my wife. Due to her health, she was unable to do the traditional corporate thing, and so she made a number of small investments, including in a property management company. And she encouraged me to work with her for a little bit while I got back on my feet. Going back to my beginnings, I collected rent and cleaned apartments, and then eventually started consulting. A few months of that cleared my head up, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I slowly started climbing out of the financial hole I had dug for myself. By 2001, things were better. I was back trading and working as a consultant, but not something I really wanted to do. Another opportunity comes along. I started investing in internet companies. By 2003, they're all broke. It was just the worst time to be an investor. And even public companies were trading at less than cash value, meaning that their market cap, that their cash they had in the bank exceeded their market cap, which is an anomaly we'll probably never see again. So I helped a friend of mine launch a tender offer for a company. He was successful. He had a $6 million payday as a result of that, and because he kind of felt bad for me, he agreed to sell some patents to me, actually to my wife, because I didn't have much money, but in any event, we got some patents. So I jump on a plane and start flying around the country, looking for somebody to manage that asset for me. I wanted to go back to trading. It was something I was good at, and did not want to spend my time managing lawyers and reading patents and things like that. After a couple weeks on the road, I realized the service didn't exist. There were lawyers out there who would help you, but no one who could handle it and manage it like the business asset that I recognized that it would be and certainly would become. After this, I formed a company and hired one other person, and life is starting to be good again. About 6 months into that, GM decides to sue me. At the time, the largest company on the face of the planet. And after beating me up for about 6 months, we finally got that one. We got that one resolved. So fast forward a little longer, we're jetting into 2004. And you probably haven't seen them, but if you read any blogs from 2004 to 2009, a few today, I was absolutely despised. Their companies were just universal in their hatred for me, and it was sort of a fun time. What they didn't understand was part of the plan. My plan was to market ourselves as not lawyers. That was the firm's idea, and take over the IP monetization market. So what I mean, so how do lawyers market themselves, right? And watch this when you're out there. It's smart, hardest working, and a bargain, okay? I thought I was smart, but I for sure knew I wasn't the smartest. I worked hard at Jones Day, and I knew I didn't want to go back to doing that, and the last thing I wanted to be was a bargain. So we go out to the market, and we start pushing it, and the market's just not understanding what we're doing. Then fast forward into 2008, and I had the pleasure of dealing with this judge that absolutely hated me and tried to retire me. It was an ugly week, and I was a bit down that week, but not for long. What I didn't realize is by painting me as the worst person on the face of the planet, she provided me publicity and marketing that I couldn't otherwise afford. It was amazing. And she actually helped me, because what happened was the inventors and the patent owners began believing that we were the ones doing something different, and treating the asset completely differently. Our phones have never stopped ringing, and I actually thank this judge who retired me. She actually made me. Today at IPNav, we're about 70 people around the world, and work with some of the largest corporations, universities, and foreign governments in helping them manage their IP issues. My wife and I love to launch startup companies, and we have over 400 people that work for us. Great. All right, you say, that's nice. What does that have anything to do with me? Okay, so here's the deal. Whether you graduated first in your class or not, or last, you have been given the tools to work with. Admittedly, you probably need a little training on how to use the tools, but trust me, you have them even if you don't know it. So don't be told by anyone that you have to follow this linear path to success. For the vast majority of us, it's not how it works, and it's far from linear. So, process. What would I do? Early on, maybe today, maybe after you take the bar, you're a little bit more relaxed, you define what success means for you. It might be money and fame. That's great. Do not apologize for it. It might be helping people who are absolutely no chance in our society. I'm all for that. It might be accepting a position as a document review lawyer until something better comes along. Perfect. Those are your goals. Set them, live with them, and embrace them. Then be honest with yourself and take every one of your life's experiences and build on them. It's a path to success. You heard it this morning. I'm telling you it's true. In a few years, go out, rethink your goals, and your goals may change. Be ready. Life's probably going to throw you a few curveballs, and you got to be ready for them, and you got to understand what to do with them when it happens. I mentioned the uncertain legal market. Uncertainty can really be uncomfortable. I think the dean used the word turmoil. I'm not sure we're in turmoil yet, but for sure uncertain. And as any good economist will tell you, in uncertainty you have a great opportunity to make good of it and to make opportunity out of it, because it's classically a time for opportunity. You can lament, you can learn the conditions, you can endeavor to take advantage of them and make something from it. This legal market that y'all are jumping into is going to undergo a massive change in the next 5 years. Be the one to figure it out and capitalize on it. Law firm model is completely changing. And so, bottom line is, embrace it and set your goals. You're probably going to get knocked down. When you do, get up. It's a wonderful experience. And don't let anyone define success. Failing is part of the success, and you need to do it. It's really special when you fail it. And if you fail, at the end of the day, so what? If you're fortunate to have another opportunity to try to succeed, I fundamentally believe that failure teaches success, and you can't fear it, you have to embrace it. And remember, uncertainty is opportunity for y'all.